I've only visited this state once, but I have the feeling today's visit is going to bring back a few memories. Jessica Rice joins us from California next on The Brian Snow Show. The thing is, until you can erase 3 Februaries, shut up. Bang! Quality over quantity. LeBron has beaten some of the best competition in NBA history. He's the GOAT emoji. I will not cuss. I will not cuss. I will not swear. I will not swear.
Where sports is the base, life and fun are the results. This is The Brian Snow Show.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this abbreviated edition of the Brian Snow Show as we are counting you down to the top of the hour for our coverage of the Sugar Bowl on Snowman Sportsnet. But I had to bring this to you today. You've heard from Erica D'Arcangelo and D'Arc's Pizza. You heard from LaShonda Irving and Surviving and is what she does. Now we're going to go to California. And why are we going to California? Because my good friend Jessica Rice is standing by to talk to us about Jessica Rice coaching. Now, you want to talk about a person that's a winner. She is that and then some. And she's also a very good friend. Here's Jessica. She joins us right now. Jessica, how are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you, Brian, for that amazing introduction.
You are quite welcome. You know, I was on your show, the Hello You Show, and I think that's where we should start. How'd you come up with the title and the method, and how'd you come up with this?
Well, it's kind of funny. I didn't want to start a podcast initially, and somewhere in the back of my mind, all of a sudden, it was like, bing, let's do a show. And I thought through a few iterations of titles, but I landed on the Hello You Show because the whole idea was like, let's say hello to ourselves again. Let's rediscover who we are. And in my coaching, that's what I do a lot of, is really helping people to understand who they are on a deeper level. And it just made sense. And I wanted to highlight people too, who've really gone through challenges, things in our lives where we've overcome. And I think it's really important for listeners to know that they're not alone. So many other people have experienced things. It's all relative, but it's what we do on the other side of that that truly counts.
That is wonderful. What are some of the things that you went through that eventually laid the cobblestones and the foundation, I beg your pardon, to this show?
Well, earlier in my life, there was definitely some trauma that I had experienced as well. I was a survivor of domestic violence. My boyfriend at the time was an amazing individual. Just kidding. That's what we do, is we use humor sometimes. But at the end of the day, I did escape. And I mean, I really escaped. I ran out of my house for my life. I had no car, I had no phone, I had no access to anything. I had to hide in our neighbor's house. And eventually he went to prison for a little while. And later then I came out of that, continued to pursue some different goals, went back to school with my mom's nudging a little bit. I was in college at this time. And then I experienced some other trauma where my colon had developed, I had ulcerative colitis. It decided to rupture. I had spent about a year and a half with different doctors and tests and multiple things that were happening. No answers until about a week in. I think I had one more test. A week later, my colon ruptured. And so had a colectomy, had to go through all of that. And that was my senior year of college. They said that I had about 4 months to 6 months to get better, and then I could have a reversal surgery. And so I did. And I made it my mission to heal my body, to heal myself, and walk across that stage at graduation.
What was the first step to that healing, to healing yourself? What was that first step?
I think at that time, in both instances, um, I have always been really hard on myself. I'd always had a lot of insecurities, a lot of self judgment, a lot of self loathing, to be honest. Um, and I think I started to have to recognize that this life that I was given was a gift. And I hadn't looked at it that way. I hadn't looked at myself as that in any capacity. But to truly recognize that and to truly face now two times in my life where not only was I face to face with, I felt like God and talking and really pleading for some rationale, some sense making of what was going on, but also to recognize that I was here for a reason, that I'm here for a purpose. And I didn't always fully know what that was, but to accept it so that I could love myself. And I think that was the path to healing, to really wanting to take then care of myself and nurture who I was as a person.
I'm still in that process because there were so many things I went through at once and so many traumas that I went through. But it took me a long time, as I told you, to recognize it. And two of the people that aside of my wife that I always highlight who are no longer here, my daughter, Donna, who passed away at age 2, and my father, William. And I went through some stuff being stupid, living in my parents' house. But when Dad and I reconnected in 2001, it's like not only had the bridge been built, it's been strengthened.
Mm.
And just 5 years later, have cancer take his life. And cancer was knocking on my door. And that was one of the biggest things for me to get through. And I'm still healing myself from that mentally, spiritually, financially, and a whole bunch of other things. But someone told me that you will use your sportscasting to help not only help you get financially solvent, but to help get you through mentally. I didn't realize how true that was until I came out of surgery 2 years ago, and I strapped on the headset and did my first game for University of North Carolina at Greensboro. And we were in the midst of the pandemic, and I was doing games remotely, which I still do. But that was that was my first step in healing myself. Do I have a long way to go? Absolutely. Am I glad I'm still here? Oh yeah. I can't be any more happy to be here than to hear the voice of the woman I love every day. And like you, and I've admitted this a few times, people do not seem to believe me because I am a man, but it happens to men too. Men go through abusive relationships, in fact, more so than women do. Not to take a slight against women, as you and I talked about before off the air, but men go through it a lot more. There's just not enough of a light shed on it. And like you, I think that's where my purpose came
Hmm. And I think what you're touching on too, and the fact that I can sit here and I can say the very streamlined approach to what happened, but it was a long journey and it's still a journey. I don't think that trauma ever fully leaves us. We just have to continually work on our mindset. We have to continually work on what it is that we're wanting to do and show up
in.
in that moment or that day. And it was hard. And my husband at the time, we weren't married yet. But it was hard for me to go through having a physical alteration to my body. I was 28 at the time, and there was a lot of tears. There was a lot of crying. There was a lot of why is this happening? But we made it through, and we continue to. And I feel like sometimes it's in the face of those challenges that we start to see that we have a second lease on life. And now we get to make decisions differently. We get to look at the choices that we make. I think it emboldened me. I'm definitely terrified. I'm definitely afraid. But I also feel like, well, what else do I have to lose? I've already risked or almost lost everything multiple times at this point. So what else can be taken from me that already hasn't been?
It's one
And
of
so,
those times. where you just say, screw it, and roll the dice as hard as you can. And I've had it said to me so many times, you have to step out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
If people only knew how much fear was behind that, but eventually you do it. You decide the heck with it. Let's roll the dice and see what happens. In midst of my abusive relationship in 2015, it was the day I found out that my daughter had passed away, where the person that I was seeing said to me, I don't want to talk about that. And here I am in a pool full of tears. Two things happened when that was said to me. Mentally, I not only snapped, but that was the last straw. That was the last straw. What was one of your last straws where you said, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm not dealing with this anymore. I'm getting out. I'm getting out and I'm not looking back.
Well, I'd say in the abusive relationship, I wish I was able to tell you I was strong and calculated about it. The truth is, I wasn't. And lots of horrible things had happened. Lots of horrible things were continuing to happen and getting worse and worse by the day. And, we had a very difficult night. It was a long night. It was incredibly intense. I mean, that's where the first time I blacked out, the first time he cracked my rib, raped me. There were a lot of things that happened. And so by the time that the morning came, I remember thinking that I was going to die, that there was no other recourse or action that could be done. There was nothing more I could say or do or plead. And I did remember, I did feel like God came and told me that he wasn't leaving me alone. I wasn't alone, because I felt incredibly alone. We had moved to a very little isolated cabin, away from people we knew. He'd stabbed the tires on my car. I had no, he smashed everything. And so it was just, so that next morning, it was one of those moments. I don't think that it was just a moment of clarity. He had barricaded the door. He removed the dresser. I quickly just put on my clothes and I ran. And I ran down the road and I could hear him screaming and I just kept running. I had no shoes on. I just had enough to be decent. And I found some elderly couple who, it was early morning, but they were out watering their plants and nearly scared them half to death. I looked a whole mess. And they hid me in their garage. And I called my father. He lived about 45 minutes away. And I don't know, but he must have been going very fast because he got there pretty quickly. And he came and found me. And so, it was, there was more that happened, but I think, at that moment, it just became really clear to me that this was the moment, this was the chance that I had, and to take it. So it wasn't bravery, but it was definitely survival.
And now you have Jessica Rice Coaching. What is the purpose of Jessica Rice Coaching?
All these moments were a culmination into my career. So after I finally graduated, after these things happened, after I had to work through feeling worthless and how am I going to be successful now? I graduated. I graduated in design and engineering and moved my way into my career. I used these moments to fuel me in forwarding my own success, in the sense of not being afraid to go and talk to the CEO directly, to not be afraid to share ideas that I had with the company, to not be afraid. And that didn't always rub everybody in the right way. There were a lot of rule followers that felt like I was breaking all of the chains of command and all of the rules.
Oh, yeah. Know that one.
But, they hadn't gone through what I had gone through. And it was kind of like, fire me if you don't like it. But I have ideas for the company. And so it fostered success in my career. And when I moved into coaching, it just felt like the next level. It felt like the next thing to really leverage and bring it all back together, which is why I work a lot with leaders. I work a lot with teams. And I work with a lot of business owners as well, because there's always people who, we all want to do something greater with our lives. We all have a purpose and a higher calling. It's just how we tap into it. And so we bring all of that together and we talk about ways that we can move through that. And so it is a mix of holistic coaching, leadership, and executive coaching, all in one.
Well, I am a fan. I will be a fan forever. I love seeing the work that you do, not just with your show, but with Jessica Rice Coaching, to the point where I've branded my women's basketball coverage with it. And it's something that just needs to be out there and get out there. And you and I have had a chance to talk. And I just immediately thought, this is perfect. This is a perfect match. And there's so much more that Jessica and I are going to do together to help each other grow, to help leaders grow, because I want my wife involved in this also. In fact, I'll leave y'all with this. It was my wife that gave me the idea to concentrate more on women's sports, because an extra line of passion comes out when I cover women's sports. I've loved women's college basketball since its inception of their first Final Four in 1982. Followed every Final Four since then. And finally stepping out on nerve, actually. And my wife made the joke earlier today. She says, the nerve of you to continue to do what you love and pursue something you got no business pursuing. And then I looked at her and I started laughing, and she gave me a hug and she says, I'm behind you all the way. So get ready. This partnership's going to go a long way. This is Jessica Rice, and she has joined me here on the Brian Snow Show. I'd love for you to come back.
I loved being here. Thanks so much for having me. And I'm really excited. I'm very honored to be connected and partnering with you in these different endeavors. I think it speaks to both of our passions and what we're here to do, and that greater purpose and calling.
I cannot wait. This is going to go a long way, folks. We'll be back.
Where sports is the base, life and fun are the results. This is the Brian Snow Show.